Good morning, my name's Angela and I'm from the Sheep Tree. Today, being as it's the 1st of August, I thought I would give you a tour of my garden. I haven't done one before, so we'll see how it goes. Feels a bit silly because my garden, although I know I'm very lucky to have all the space, feels very small compared to a lot of the garden tours that you see on YouTube. But I will show you what I'm growing or not growing and what's going well and what's not going so well. So let's take a look. Right, so I thought I would start you off with the entrance into my garden. So here we have something that you might be familiar with. So this is my fast compost trial that I'm doing at the minute. You can see there's my compost ring, which I'm starting to fill for the next batch. And this here is my herb garden. These weren't grown from seed. They were in fact £20 worth of garden vouchers that I got given for Christmas. And I bought the small plants this year, put them in the ground, and this is what I've got, except for that rosemary, which was from a cutting I did a couple of years back, and the coriander, which was gifted to me by a friend because they had a load of self-sown coriander in their garden. So that's the herb garden, which will be filled out a bit more next year. And then moving on, we have got the brassica tunnel. I won't go in there at the minute because it means undoing all of that. Yeah, that's all the damsons that are weighing the branches down at the moment. So in here we've got Romanesco cauliflowers. The back just there is some purple kale. That is green sprouting. Then down here we've got some Golden Acres cabbage, and those there are the Brussels sprouts that desperately need to go in the ground. And then all of this you can see around here. That's all bindweed that I need to pull. But I think I got on top of the caterpillars. I think a cabbage white had managed to get in and laid quite a few eggs. But I will have another check this afternoon. And then we come down to the bulk of my garden. Under a branch. There we go. So this is my squash patch. Well, one of the squash patches. We've got on this side here normal green courgettes. And on this side here, we've got patty pan squash, which look like that there. So we're sort of at the point where I'm getting a couple a day, but we're not at like courgettes everywhere. And then towards the back there, we've got some 3 butternut squash plants, which are dotted around in sort of that area. Yet to see any actual fruit on the butternut squash, but they always seem to be a bit temperamental. And then that in the middle there is a fennel that went to flower and I'm hoping to get some seeds off of. And then we have my second bed. So these are all no-dig beds that I started. This is their second year. So they were cardboard, then fleece, then muck from the sheep shed, and then compost. And then I just put more compost on this year, except for that one which I've mulched heavily with hay. So this bed, we've currently got some runner beans, the one Berlotti bean, this one here, that actually germinated because I had a nightmare with them. So I've got some Berlotti beans. I don't know, I might try and save that seed and see if I can go again next year, but I don't know. Then we've got some fennel, a row of basil. I've just tied the fennel back because they were crowding out the basil and the basil wasn't getting any daylight. Spring onions, leeks, kohlrabi that is almost all harvested. There we have them. And then I did pop in, what did I pull out of here? I can't remember what I pulled out of here. Something got pulled out of here. And I popped in some pak choi. And there we have a cucumber and some nasturtium and some dill that's going to seed. It's not done terribly well this year. And then this, first time I've done this, because I've been seeing everywhere how great it is when you leave a radish to go to flower, and then the seed pods are supposed to be very tasty. And it turns out they are. So a seed pod like that one there, you literally just nip it off and eat it, and it's kind of like a peppery sugar snap pea. And I'm really enjoying them to the extent that I have in fact left a row of radish, tied it up, and I'm going to let it flower. So yeah, where do I get to? I've finished that bed, and then this is the third of the row beds that I made last year. So that was a failed attempt at peas. Peas do not grow in my garden. I'm putting it down to some kind of weevil. And then in amongst the nasturtium, there was some perpetual spinach, but it is being drowned out a bit. The odd lettuce, a row of beetroot, some more fennel, some of which is bolting, so I'll need to sort that. And then we've got beetroot. That's the perpetual spinach that actually did well. Lettuce, and then hiding under the lettuce is the next lot of spring onion, and another row of pak choi. That's the radish that I just spoke about. And these are my outdoor peppers. I just had extra peppers, so I thought I'd give it a go given how hot last year was, and then all we've had for the last few weeks is rain. So I also didn't really pay much attention to what I was planting where. So I've got on this one, although there's been a bit of damage, you see those, I can't remember the name of them, I will pop it on here for you when I find the seed packet. And then these, I believe, are the bell peppers. And then we've got some jalapenos back there. You can just see there's a little pepper going there. And these are cayenne, I believe. Oddly, the cayenne that I've grown outside have got these. I don't know if you see that. The purple stripes coming down them. The cayenne that I've grown inside have just gone green to red. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. If anybody knows, by all means, please fill me in. I'd be very grateful for that. But yeah, that's an oddity. So yeah, I think I've got the jalapeno, the cayenne, and bell peppers out here, and the one that I don't know the name of. And I just covered the bottom with a load of lettuce plants I had left over. So yeah, those are the 3 beds I've got there. And then we've got this big square bed, which was filled with onions. I've now lifted all of the onions. I've left the leeks there. They're still flowering, and hopefully I'll be able to get some seed off them, but the pollinators are loving them, because you can see there's a big old... Get him to focus on him. There we go. Big bumblebee. Having a great time on that one. We've got bees and wasps all over the place. But yeah, and then the nasturtium. Under there is my next lot of kohlrabi, which is actually I'm a bit excited about because I'm a bit of a geek. Saved seed. So I planted last year in autumn some kohlrabi, and then let it over winter, and then it flowered come early spring, and then I saved the flowers, and I actually managed to, I think they were just there somewhere. So I've managed to plant back where they were. Yeah, so those germinated, which is great. So we'll see how they produce kohlrabis. Hidden back there is a cucumber somewhere, and there are actual cucumbers on it that I just spied a minute ago that might, I think there was a bigger one than that somewhere, need harvesting. More nasturtium to keep the butterfly happy. Sunflower. Yep, so this bed has now become a bit more of a hodgepodge, because I didn't really have anything lined up. Well, I did. I was going to plant the borlotti beans. Yeah, so the borlotti beans were going to go in this bed, but having sown them twice they didn't germinate. I had one germinate in the first lot, and that's planted over there, and I had one germinate in the second lot and then swiftly die on me. So I just planted whatever in here. So we have got, if we can see, this here is a row of leftover golden acre cabbages. I've put the net on them to protect from the butterflies, but now they're getting a bit big, so there's a fair amount of slug damage as well. So I'm probably going to have to remove the net and then just watch for caterpillars and pick caterpillars off. Next to that I had some extra leeks. So I've got 2 rows of leeks down there. And then we had more extra plants. These here, you see them? That is celery. So we got a little patch of celery. And these are, which I don't think will come to anything this year. I think they took so long to germinate. I don't think they're going to flower in time, but they're growing. These are Cape gooseberries, or I think they're called ground cherries. Sorry, there's a tractor going past. Yeah, so it's harvest season in the UK, so if the sun is shining, the tractors are driving. Yeah, so this is Cape gooseberries, so we've got a few of those extra that I popped in, and then this is some more dill that has gone to seed. Sorry, I keep flipping you around. And then we've got a bit of basil down there and another cucumber. And then a lot of space, which I'm still trying to decide what to do with. And then down here we've got, I don't know if you remember in one of my earlier videos, I grew a little cage and I planted some onion seeds to grow some onion sets. I haven't actually pulled this off and weeded it, so it's not done too bad for weeds. I have, however, had a problem that some kind of vole or something has decided that this here and this here are their entrance to their home. So I think this side was the white onion that I sowed, I can't remember the name of the variety, and this side was the red onion. So it looks like I'm going to potentially get a lot more red onion sets than I do of the white onion sets. But they've germinated. However, where my kohlrabi was, I did have my seed sown onions. Sorry, grown from seed onions. And they did quite well. They weren't as good as my onion sets, but they did do alright. So I probably will grow from seed again next year. Yeah, so that is that bed. Oh, also, so behind where the sunflower's planted, there's some pot marigolds, or calendula, and my sunflower comes up through there, but also there is a jack-o'-lantern squash, which I have trained across the top of my compost and wood chip bay. So that will go all the way along there, and it'll probably come down, so potentially I could train that round to take up this space and cover the ground there, but I'm not entirely sure where we'll get to with that one. So moving on, we have got a row of outdoor tomatoes. All of my tomatoes are in desperate need of side shoots pinching out and tying in at the minute, which is another job for this afternoon. It's just a row of cosmos, because I had some cosmos that I'd sown and I needed to bung it in somewhere. There's some decent sized fruit on here. How likely we are with the way the weather's being for it to ripen, I don't know, but I mean, that's not bad. And then, yeah, we've got some down there. Yeah, so there's a row of, how many have I got there? 8, I think it is, tomato plants of various varieties. And then we've got a row of chard, which I haven't really eaten any of. It's just feeding the birds, it seems. And then we've got leeks. So that's the first lot that I sowed in, I think it was in February. I think I chitted those indoors and I planted them in trays. And then down here, these little things here are some leeks that I popped in the ground from trays yesterday, actually. And then there's a fairly sparse row of beetroot, another row of beetroot, some parsnips. There were carrots, but my garden friends, the sparrows, just decided to go along and snip the tops off of all of them, and then the slugs ate out the bottoms. So there are no carrots, but I do have parsnips and I have potatoes. And then down here, we've actually got 3 rows of celery. So there's quite a bit in there really. And then over here we've got, a bit slow to the game, some climbing French beans. So they just didn't want to germinate this year, my beans. But I did get this lot here. And then the most recent ones I did, they all germinated. And I've literally just popped them in the ground there. Again, I think that was yesterday I popped them in the ground. Then we've got my fruit patch, which I have just mulched the ground with some cardboard for now to try and keep the nettles back. I've actually got quite a bit of space there. I'm kind of undecided what I'm going to do with that, but for now I will just keep layering on the cardboard to suppress the weeds, and have a think on that one. And then if we walk through, so I've sort of stopped picking the raspberries. There are still a few about, but I've got 2 large containers, 2 large bags in my freezer. These are next year's fruiting canes. I have been harvesting the odd leaves to save the leaves for raspberry leaf tea. But what I will do soon is prune back all of last year's canes. I'll give you an example of them over here. So this had fruit on this year, so that won't fruit next year, so I'll prune that back at the ground. And yeah, and that's a nice example of this year's. So yeah, so I was saying, I've got down here, that's where the pumpkin starts. And at the minute I'm training him back and forth across here, and there is the odd fruit sort of appearing, but we'll see. That was just a case of I had a space and I had an extra plant, so I bunged him in. Oh, there we go, there's some fruit on there. And then this is one of my compost heaps on that side there, and that is some wood chip, and those are some weeds that need relocating to the compost heap. So now we go into the greenhouse. It is a bit, well, it's not too warm. I was going to say it's a bit warm. It's 27 degrees according to the thermometer. And I have plants of varying degrees of happiness in here. Like I said before, all of my tomatoes are in desperate need of pruning, side shooting, and tying in. Also need to tie in the cucumbers that are in here, and I need to cut some diseased leaves off of my aubergines. So we have a cucumber down here, and I've had a fair bit of fruit off it. There we go, there's some more fruit coming through. It's been quite good so far. Let's see, it needs tying in. The peppers in here obviously are doing a lot better than the peppers outside. These are the only 2 Tabasco that germinated, and they do seem to be a lot slower to the game. They are just throwing out buds with flowers on them, but they haven't flowered yet. These are my bell peppers, which seem to be doing okay. The cayenne peppers, on the other hand, are on fire. I think I've harvested 2 or 3 that I've actually used, but I've got red ones popping up all over the place. And then behind there we've got the jalapenos. If I can try and find one that will actually come into focus. There we go. But yeah, so they're doing alright. And then we've got another row of prairie fire. I've got these dotted in all over the place. Easy to show you down here. So they fruit upwards. They start off white and then they go through sort of a yellow, orange, and then to red. I actually have in the house chili flakes that are entirely made from these ones, and I use it all the time, so that's what I'll be doing this year. So I've put so many in. I've got some in the potting shed as well, but you get a lot of chilies. I mean, I had 2 plants last year, and I'm still using the chili flakes from last year, so I should be in good supply there. And these are, again, the ones that I can't remember the name of. But there's some better examples down here. These aren't actually spicy. I don't know if they're meant to be spicy. I probably ought to do a bit of reading on that. But you can basically eat them straight off the fruit, straight off the plant. I'm sort of trying to leave some to see if they go red and get spicier. But as of yet, I even had a slight kick from them. It just tastes like a bell pepper. And then we've got some Cape gooseberries in here. It's my aubergine. I need to get rid of those leaves that aren't looking happy. Another cucumber over here. This one is a bit more prolific because I've had a few more off of it. And then we've got the aubergines. I've got 3 different varieties. Can't remember what they are, but basically we've got that one there, which is a white sort of striped round one. There is, I think this is the purple long. Wonder what gave it away. And then that one might have been a Black Beauty. But I've got fruit on all of them, which is excellent. And they're all looking quite happy this year, in all fairness. Aubergines are always a bit hit and miss with me when I'm growing them. And then on to the tomatoes. So this variety of tomato, which came in an advent calendar I had, and I think it's Balcony Magic. It's just sad. No matter what I do, the leaves are looking a bit worrying, but nothing seems to be jumping to any other plants. So I don't think it's the start of blight. I've got 2 in pots, and there's 2 in the ground at the back of the greenhouse. And they all look a bit sad. But they've got loads of fruit on them, and the fruit's ripening. So basically, I'm waiting until the fruit ripens off of these things. Any fruit that's sort of set now, I think. And then I'm just going to pull them and get them out of the greenhouse so they don't cause any other problems. You would think, if I didn't have the other 2 at the back, you'd think it was the fact they were in the pots. I mean, this is fresh compost, and they've been fed and regularly watered. But these 2 plants, so there's this one and that one. So they're 2 different varieties. This is the Tigerella. You can see it's got huge fruit on it. And then that one is a yellow cherry plum tomato. But they both look very sad. They look like they're just not getting enough nutrients or not getting enough water or too much water, I don't know. But their siblings that are in the ground are far happier. So we've got one. I mean, the fruit on it's smaller, the ones in the ground, I will say that. Those are the cherry. And behind that one is the other Tigerella. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on there, but none of the others are even close to ripening at the moment that I've noticed. I mean, the Balcony Magic in the ground there are much smaller, but they've got fruit on and they're ripening. I've got some basil down here, which I do want to go around the garden and harvest a bit of basil for drying. There's some more prairie fire there. But yeah, that's the greenhouse. So everything's looking pretty good. I'm just in that waiting, sort of a holding pattern, the waiting game for when all the tomatoes start to ripen. But yes, definitely need to get in here and prune it out so that we don't get any blight in here. Right, so now I'm outside the greenhouse and the sun's come out, and if anything it feels warmer outside than it did inside. This is the bottom end of the garden, so behind me we've got the potting shed. I won't bother going in there, there's nothing interesting. There's a few sad looking aubergines that actually have fruit on them, and my prairie fires, which also have fruit on them. Got IBC that has the water in that I used to water the greenhouse. I did buy, it's first year using it, some shading fabric because the tomatoes are just wilting. They weren't happy, so I thought I would try it and see what it does. It doesn't seem to have had a negative effect, but we will see. I mean, the temperatures of the greenhouse are a bit more reasonable now. Instead of being 40 degrees, they kind of stop at about 35. Then we have over here the chickens. They're just happy doing their thing. Although saying that, 2 of them must be laying because there's only 3 out there. And then, so that's where we've come from. That there is the French beans, just to give you an idea of where we are. And that side, that's that big bed that used to have the onions in, that now has the self-seeded kohlrabi. Saved seed kohlrabi. But we have what is supposed to be 2 more beds to show you. It's kind of all merged into 1 bed. So we've got here some corn that I did plant a couple of, I think it was the jack-o'-lantern pumpkins in there. And then there should be a path. And then we have a squash bed with some tomatoes that I had spare just rammed in the corner. This bed has is it the trombonentia? I can't remember, or trombonentia, the curly squash, whatever they're called. I'll show you some of them in a minute, which were supposed to be climbing up over the chicken run. And then we've got the curry squash, which are doing fantastically. I think I will, providing they don't all rot and fall off the plants, or get got by an unexpected frost, I will have a lot of them to eat over winter. And then I've also got dumpling squash, which, in all honesty, I haven't actually spotted any because it's just, yeah, chaos. The tomatoes, they're doing all right, actually. There's plenty of fruit on them. See down, where are we? There we go. There's fruit on them. Whether or not it'll ripen. Sorry, I lost you there. The squash patch kind of ate the camera. So try again. So what I was saying is there's plenty of fruit on them, as you can see there. But whether or not they will ripen, because they're being sort of drowned by the squash. But either way, I can do things with green tomatoes, so that's no problem. There is actually another. I think that's another curry squash fruit there. But I will come around here and I will show you some of what we've got. Oh, I've also got in the garden is a pear tree, which again I'm trying to decide whether the pears are ready because the wasps are just starting to tuck into them, which normally means they're about there. So I might pick a couple of the bigger ones and see if they ripen up. And if they do, I will get canning those ones. Oh, that's handy. I've got a couple of curry squash. So these are the curry squash, which are effectively like butternut squash to eat. And I have got a lot of them. What I might do, though, well, it's not too bad, because I heavily mulched these, I was just a bit concerned about them rotting out. And I do have a large stack of tiles in my shed that was in the shed when I moved in. So I might just bring the tiles down. Hello. What are you doing there? Yeah, bring the tiles down and pop them under any squash. I knew this would happen when I was growing up over it, and I'm fine with this, but you notice any squash that's within pecking distance is getting eaten. But I think I'll have plenty. The squash that I can't say the name of are these ones. You can pick them small and they'll be like courgettes, or you can leave them to grow big and they will dry out and store like pumpkins. So I will do a bit of both. I haven't actually eaten any of them yet. I might pick that one up there, because it seems to be growing through the mesh that I put on there just to keep it off the bottom half of the chicken run to give them a chance to grow. But you see, there we go. As the curry squash has grown up in that direction, that's actually the one growing right across the top is a curry squash vine. So something I have learnt is I could probably have got away with just 1 or 2 plants in here. There's 3 plants in here, but they do seem to take up an awful lot of space as far as pumpkins are concerned, but they seem to throw out a lot of fruit. There we go, I've got quite a big, can't see it, hang on, clambering through the squash patch. Oh, there's a couple of wasps in here as well. There we go, there's a big one down there. So what I actually need to do is cut back this. So this is my only route to get through with the mower, so I can mow up there. Used to use that path there that no longer exists. There is actually a mower's whip down here, but there are raspberry canes and whatever this is, which has grown out from the hedge. There's no longer any fruit on the raspberry canes, so I'll cut those back and I'll be able to get through with the mower there. I've actually got 2 different types of corn. I'm not too worried. I don't want to save seed. It was just a case of my corn was slow germinating and I was fighting with the shrews or whatever it was that kept on going into the greenhouse and eating anything I was sowing. And I was at the smallholding festival in Bilth and somebody was selling sweet corn plants, so I bought the back ones. But actually mine has caught up quite a lot. It tasseled up quite a bit later, but there's some reasonable size corn cobs on there. It's actually 3 on that plant, so that makes me quite happy. Oh, so I put in here, I think I put 2 jack-o'-lanterns. Yeah, I put the 3 dumplings along there, and there's 2 jack-o'-lantern plants. One was a good plant, and that was it. The people so my squash plants, except for the courgettes, I actually bought the plants. I bought them from a company called Rocket Garden, and I was very, very impressed with them. They send you the plants. Everything's packaged in cardboard. There's no plastic. And the plants actually, if they had something which they obviously couldn't sell as a plant by itself because it was a bit weedy or whatever, they sort of throw it in as an extra. So I ended up with, I should have had like 3, I think, of each plant I ordered. I ended up with sort of 3 extra plants of various varieties, one of which I think was the jack-o'-lantern. So one of these plants so where is it? One of them's been in here for a long time, which I think is that one at the back, which is mainly grown up through the back. This might be the scrawny one. And it's produced a fruit like that, which in all honesty is a bit weird looking to me. But I guess it will become pumpkin shaped. And we'll see what it is. But anyway, food's food, isn't it? Right, so let's have a look and see if we can find any dumplings over here. So I think the dumplings were in this row, if you will. But I know the curry squash have infiltrated. You see there, I've got a curry squash. This is a dumpling plant here, but a curry squash vine has come through there. So we have tiny, tiny fruit. So this is dumpling. More curry squash. Whoa! Yeah, the size of that bad boy. There we go. Give you an idea. Get it to focus. There we go. Look at the size of that, just hiding in there. Yeah, I think I will go and get some tiles just to lie them on, because it'd be a shame if these were uttered out. But yeah, and I think I might just pick that one, and I'll have that one with my lunch. Yeah, it's probably a bit big to be picked, but because it seemed to be tapering off at the end, I figured it probably wouldn't be the best one to grow for storage. So we will try that. And I'm not entirely sure what. Oh, that's one of these vines growing up there. But yeah, so that is basically my kitchen garden. But yeah, so that is my garden. I hope you enjoyed seeing it, and if you've got any suggestions or comments, please feel free to let me know, because when it's just you don't always think of the best ideas, because somebody else might see it and go, well, actually, if you did that and that would grow better. If you did this and this, you'd have a bit more space. So I'm always happy to hear what other people think.